A faithful servant rises from the shadows to protect the very family that once gave him shelter. But hidden truths will tear their world apart. What happens when loyalty meets betrayal, and a hero turns out to be the avenger no one expected? If you love stories filled with sacrifice, betrayal, and shocking revelations, then stay with us till the end. If you're enjoying this story, hit follow and tap like, then I'll reveal what happened next. Baskets and cartons filled with vegetables and fruits were quickly and skillfully loaded before he turned to the workers, giving them instructions. The goods-laden vehicle departed. Holding a fresh carrot in one hand, he chewed thoughtfully, his light brown eyes fixed on the vehicle fading into the distance. Then he sat down, wrote down the accounts, and finished the task within minutes. Some kitchen supplies are about to arrive. Madam gave me the list this morning.
Should I go fetch them?
You can check this register in the meantime, he said, addressing Gerald, who was sitting nearby. Gerald, who had been observing him working diligently without pause, smiled involuntarily. There's no need for me to check anything. You handle it yourself. And yes, return quickly. I want to head out fishing, Gerald said in a friendly tone. Carty left the farm shortly afterward. Gerald thought to himself with contentment. He is honest and hard-working. I'm truly fortunate to have found a worker like him. Like the other laborers, Carty was just an ordinary worker at Gerald's place, but with his manners and conduct, he had grown remarkably close to him. It was about 2 years ago when he first arrived at Gerald's farm. Back then, even he wasn't sure he would get the job. You are Gerald, aren't you? A stranger's voice startled Gerald. He turned to see a young man in old, worn-out clothes, his face marked by poverty, standing before him. Yes, I am Gerald. Who are you and how do you know me? He asked dryly. Sir, I've come looking for work. Someone told me you often need laborers, so I came here, the boy replied timidly. Gerald answered coldly, At the moment, I don't have any vacancies. Try elsewhere. Then he turned back to his driver, who was unloading goods at the market. Please, sir, give me a chance. I've come from far away. Many places have already refused me. I'm not asking for much, just a roof over my head and some food will be enough. Please don't reject me, sir. The boy's voice trembled. Gerald looked at him carefully. So you're willing to work under any condition? Yes, sir. I'm ready for anything, just give me a chance. The boy's face shone with sincere hope. Fine then, come with me. Sit in my truck, we'll talk on the way. Gerald gestured. On the way, he asked, What kind of work can you do? The boy quickly replied, Anything. On the farm or in the house, cleaning, labor, whatever is needed. Gerald asked, What's your name? The boy respectfully answered, Sir, my name is Carty. I loved studying, but circumstances didn't let me continue. My mother used to work in people's homes, but after an accident she became very ill. Then the burden of food and medicine fell on me. I managed with small jobs, but survival became too difficult. So I left my mother with a relative and set out to earn a living. That's when I heard about you, that your work is extensive and you often need workers. Gerald looked at him thoughtfully and said, You say you need income. But just now you said you'd work only for food and shelter? Carty gave a faint smile and replied, Yes, sir. I said that so I might win a place in your heart by working with devotion. Then with time, I'd also earn a proper wage. That's why I want this job no matter what. Gerald fell silent, but Carty began proving his words true from the very next day. He worked with such dedication that Gerald was astonished. To test him, Gerald gave him different responsibilities, and the boy completed each one with care and determination. One afternoon, after lunch, Gerald called him over while he was writing in the accounts register. You never mentioned your father, why? He asked, his eyes still on the register. Carty replied softly, My father abandoned us before I was even born. Gerald looked up, startled, and saw helplessness and sorrow on his face. Before he could ask another question, Carty stood up. Sir, I should go. My work is getting delayed, Gerald said gently. If you wish, take some rest. I've seen you working non-stop since morning, but Carty immediately replied, No, sir, it's fine. Apart from physical labor, I can also help with accounts. I'm good with numbers. Gerald smiled and handed him the register. All right then, let's test this skill too. My agricultural poultry and dairy farm is spread out. I once had a man to manage the finances, but he went abroad. Since then, I've been handling it myself. If you can really help, I'd be glad. Carty carefully took the register and began calculating. A few days later, Hazel, Gerald's wife, was angrily scolding a gardener. You've ruined the plant completely. I told you to trim it properly. Leave tomorrow. You'd better not show your face again. Her body trembled with anger, her eyes red. The frightened gardener muttered apologies and fled. Gerald watched from a distance. Hazel was a sharp, arrogant woman. They had been married for 25 years, but childlessness and the hardships of life had made her more bitter and quarrelsome. Meanwhile, Carty's voice was heard. He was neatly packing vegetables and instructing the other workers. Gerald called him over and said, You once said you'd slowly earn your place in my heart and become worthy of a better wage. But I believe you deserve a permanent job with a decent salary right now. Carty's eyes glistened with gratitude and joy. Sir, all I ask is that sometimes you allow me 2 days off to visit my mother. All right, Gerald nodded. One day, Hazel noticed the very plant she had shouted about earlier. Now, after careful trimming, it had taken on a beautiful design. Oh, how lovely this looks. Gerald, who did this? A new boy, Carty. In conversation, he asked for permission to work on it. Look how well he shaped it. Hazel stared at the plant for a long while and then said, Tell him from now on. He'll also take care of pruning in the pots. Soon, Carty also started handling market errands and accounts. Just 2 months later, he asked Gerald for a 2-day leave to visit his mother. Gerald replied, I'm glad to allow it, but I must admit, in such a short time I've grown dependent on you. Carty's eyes shone with gratitude. He said, When I first came here, hunger, unemployment, and anxiety had broken me. But now all of that is gone. Sir, I'm deeply indebted to you, Gerald smiled. Carty was weak, yet he still gathered courage to step out in search of work. When he finally found a job, he was overjoyed. Yes, a man named Gerald has been very kind to me. He doesn't just care about me, he looks after all his workers. Meals on time, wages on time, that's his habit, Carty said to his mother while chatting. It had been 2 or 3 hours since he had arrived home. Sitting with his mother in their broken-down, poverty-stricken room, Jacqueline's face lit up with hope as she listened to her son's words. You say you've been given a room to live in.
Should I also come with you?
How long will we keep troubling poor Anne? Jacqueline asked in a soft voice. She no longer had a home of her own, nor any support. Because of illness and debt, she had been forced to sell her house. For a long time, she and her son had wandered from one rented place to another. Sometimes they were thrown out for not paying rent, other times they had to rely on someone's mercy. Eventually, when Carty got the chance to work in a faraway place, he pleaded with his relative Anne to shelter his mother. Anne worked as a waitress, while her husband worked as a cleaner in a hotel. They had 2 sons studying in a charity school. Their house was already too small due to poverty, and taking in Jacqueline was no easy burden, but they still showed mercy. Holding his mother's hand, Carty said, Not yet, but as soon as things get better, I'll take you with me. For now, I'll send Anne the rent money for the room and some extra for food. That way you won't remain a burden on them, Jacqueline smiled. Poor Anne, despite her hardships, she's still helping us. Last month, when you sent money and I shared some with her, she was overjoyed. Her behavior softened even more after that. That evening, when Carty told Anne he would regularly send money for rent and expenses, her and her husband's faces lit up with relief. Their eyes no longer held pity but respect. The very next day, Carty left again. The following morning, Jacqueline entered the kitchen. Today I'll help you with the cooking, she said. Anne, who was cutting vegetables, stopped and looked at her. No, let it be. You're often weak because of your illness. You won't manage. Jacqueline gently took the knife from her hand. No, Anne, please let me. You come home tired from your job and still manage the housework. I'm better now. The medicine is helping. While frying the vegetables, she smiled. Carty said he'll take me with him in a few months. The pain of separation is finally bringing some peace to my heart. Anne listened silently, thinking how hunger and deprivation could change a person, how dignity and a full stomach could soften one's soul. One day, while driving, Gerald asked Carty, "You once said your father left before you were born. Did you ever have any contact with him?" Carty answered slowly, "No, sir. Once he left, he was never seen or heard from again." "My mother tried hard, but it was useless," Gerald sighed with pity. "Your mother must have worked very hard then?" "Yes, sir. She worked tirelessly just to provide us food. She endured people's harshness and humiliation to keep me alive." Gerald felt deep sympathy for him. Meanwhile, Anne happily entered Jacqueline's room. "Look, I bought new clothes for the children today." Jacqueline smiled. "They're lovely. The kids will be so happy." She knew this happiness was only possible because of the money Carty was sending. After a while, Anne asked, "You said Carty will take you with him in a few months."
Do you really think that will happen?
Jacqueline sighed. "I don't know. Maybe he just said that to give me hope. But even if he doesn't, it's all right." Anne still felt relief, knowing that support would keep coming. A few days later, Carty said to Hazel, "Ma'am, I brought these 6 plants for you. If you allow, I'll place them in the pots." He had slowly started helping with household tasks too. Hazel brightened. "These flowering plants are so beautiful." Carty bowed slightly. "Shall I trim the lawn grass too?" Just then Gerald entered. "Not now, we have to go to the fish farm. I'll get someone else to do it," but Carty quickly said, "Sir, I'll do it myself." "Ma'am only likes my work," Gerald chuckled. "You really are hardworking." "You ignore your own exhaustion," Carty's face grew serious. "Sir, my whole life has been about labor. In childhood, I lived for a while with relatives. Even to get my share of food, I had to struggle against humiliation. Hard work became part of my life." Then, suddenly falling silent, he stood up. "Sorry, sir. I spoke too much." He hurried out, wiping his eyes. 2 days later, fever and weakness struck him down. For 2 days he had already been coughing but ignored it to keep working. Finally, his body gave up, forcing him to take medicine and rest. It was the first time in ages he had free time, but now, memories of the past came flooding back. While packing, Jacqueline softly revealed, "My son, I once belonged to a very wealthy family. I was the only heir to all their property." Carty froze, stunned. "What? Where are they now?" "Your parents, the property. Why didn't you inherit it?" "We've been wandering homeless and you're joking?" But Jacqueline's eyes welled with tears. "No, my son. This is the truth. You're grown now, and I want to share the burdens I've carried alone for years, the betrayals of my own family." She began telling her heartbreaking story about her parents, the man she loved, the betrayal she suffered, and how Carty's father abandoned them when wealth slipped from reach. Carty clung to her in tears. "I always thought my father was dead." "For us, he is dead," Jacqueline said bitterly. "Even if he's alive somewhere in this world." Thunder rumbled outside. Rain poured down. Carty lay back down, still weak, lost in the painful truths his mother had finally revealed. A few times that man had come by, the one I met in the market who helped me get this job. He was a relative of my mistress. We didn't speak much, just the occasional hello and small talk. One day when I was home alone, he came over. In casual conversation, he suddenly said, "I heard your marriage ended." I was dusting and replied curtly, "Yes, that's true. Did Madam tell you?" He paused, then abruptly asked, "Haven't you thought about remarrying?" My hand froze midair. I stared at him in shock. A question like that from an employee? Reading my expression, he continued, "From the way you look and speak, it's clear you're not from a servant's household. I'm saying you could escape this humiliating work by marrying a decent man." His words brought tears to my eyes. I answered softly, "You're right. I am here because of circumstances. Otherwise I stopped. It didn't feel right to spill my past to a stranger." He watched my silence, then quietly said, "I have a small business and a house. If you want, I'd marry you." I was stunned. How could this be? With a trembling voice, I asked, "What is it in me that makes you willing to marry a servant?" He smiled. "Why not? You're free from your first husband and you have no child. You can start a new life with a loving husband. Here's my card. If you agree, tell me discreetly. Your madam would never like it if her relative fell in love with a servant," and with that he left. I felt frozen. I couldn't imagine how my fortune could change so suddenly. This offer to lift a penniless servant into the sky. I told myself he liked me because I had no child. I decided I would reveal everything after marriage. I trusted that kind-hearted Graham would accept me and my son. I don't even remember when I called him or when I became his wife. One day servant, the next day a respectable wife. Graham would say, "It pains me to see a sensible, beautiful woman reduced to a servant by fate." One day I told him the truth, that I came from a wealthy family, that I had been disinherited for marrying for love. I had little formal education, so I couldn't get good work and had to take menial jobs. I begged him not to dig into my past. He replied gently, "Your past doesn't matter to me. From now on, you are Jacqueline Graham." We began to live peacefully. When he traveled for business, I would immediately go to see you. You started speaking more freely and insisted I take you along, but I kept postponing. Many times I felt the sting inside, leaving an innocent child alone for my happiness. But I convinced myself that soon you would also become part of this prosperous life. 3 months into our marriage, I summoned the courage and told Graham everything. He listened quietly, but when he looked at me, there was reproach in his eyes. "I never imagined you could do this, Jacqueline," he said, standing angrily. My voice broke into sobs. "My circumstances forced me. Please don't leave me," but he spoke harshly. "How can I accept a mother like you, leaving an innocent child alone while you live comfortably?" His bitter words shook me to the core. Yet that same night I brought you back to me. My joy knew no bounds. Our separation was over. A few days later, a young man came to my door and asked, "Are you Jacqueline?" I was startled. He called me by my family name. I invited him in and asked, "Yes, I am Jacqueline. Who are you?" He hesitated, then said, "I've come after much trouble. Your mother is no longer in this world." Hearing that, my world went dark. I collapsed onto the sofa and wept. The parents I had left everything for had died, angry and gone, and the one I had given my life for had been unfaithful. After I stopped crying, the young man took an envelope from his bag. "This is entrusted to you. Your mother arranged these papers before her death and wished them to be delivered to you, Jacqueline." He left the envelope and went away. I cried for a long time, then mustered courage and opened the papers. As I read, I could hardly breathe. My parents had not only forgiven me, they had restored the property in my name, the very estate my father had disinherited me from. I called Graham urgently. "Come quickly, it's important." He rushed over. Between my sobs, I told him everything and showed the documents. He steadied me and said, "Your mother was a great woman. And now look, Jacqueline, you're even richer than me. But tell me one thing. You won't leave me, will you?" Fear was clear in his voice. I looked at him, the same man who had lifted me from the ground and placed me in the sky. "You were wealthier and kinder than many. You had made me respected and given me a peaceful life after I'd been homeless and hungry. How could I be ungrateful enough to abandon the one who loved, honored, and gave me status?" I begged Graham not to speak that way again. I stopped crying and spoke quickly. I felt pain that such a good man would even think it. Above all, you had given Honey the love of a father, and instead of being angry at my lies, he had accepted him as his son. I learned the whole truth. I realized exactly who had done what. Yet I took out my cell phone and, showing Graham's picture to Auntie, asked, Was this man my mother's servant? The answer I expected was yes. In moments, the whole drama became clear. Graham had used his relative and his wife to plan this deceit. I had been grateful to him, and he was scheming to take advantage of me. As I told my story, I cried many times. Then I leaned against the wall and inhaled deeply as if a burden had been lifted. Carty watched his mother for a long time, pitiful, twice betrayed. Suddenly he rose, sat beside her, hugged her, and began to sob uncontrollably. The night was very deep. Everyone was asleep. Only Carty was awake in his room. He was alone in the building meant for workers. Some workers were on leave and a few had taken trailers to other cities. Aside from the guard and a watchman assigned to Gerald's house, no one was in Ahmad Erpa at that hour. Carty couldn't sleep. He was engrossed in a mobile game when suddenly he heard footsteps and running. He jumped up and ran outside. The watchman was running toward him. "Robbers! They attacked Sir Gerald's house, wounded the guard, and gotten inside." Carty panicked, grabbed his phone, and said, "I'll call the police. Do you have any weapons?" Carty had already informed the police. After ending the call, he ran toward Gerald's residence. Within moments, he was inside the building. He saw that robbers had forced guns on Gerald and his wife, Hazel. Gerald's face was helpless. Hazel's face was pale with fear. Carty lunged, grabbing one robber and clamping a tight hold around his neck, shouting, "Stop, or I'll break his neck!" "Now you've invited your own doom." Saying this, Carty leapt without hesitation at another armed robber. Hearing the commotion, the other 3 looters inside the house rushed out as well. Carty lunged at the gunman and signaled Hazel to move toward the room. Gerald stood helpless, for the attackers had grown in number, and he feared Carty's life was in danger. Though unarmed, Carty fought fiercely with the robber. He managed to snatch the gun and push Hazel safely into a nearby room. Hazel quickly locked the door behind her. Picking up the fallen gun, Carty fought back with all his strength. He grabbed one assailant by the neck, forcing his weapon to drop at his feet, and growled, "Let Hazel go, now!" Another bandit was about to speak when Carty shoved the captive hard toward Gerald, knocking both off balance. By luck, this saved Gerald from being shot. Carty then urged Gerald to get inside the room as well. As Gerald entered, pulling out his pistol, the sound of gunfire and rushing footsteps echoed from outside. Suddenly, silence filled the house. When Gerald peeked into the lounge, his heart sank. Carty lay on the floor, blood pooling around him, groaning in pain. The robbers had shot him and fled. "Carty! Oh God, you're wounded!" Gerald cried in panic, urging Hazel to bring a phone. Carty had taken bullets in his leg, with cuts and bruises across his face and hands. He was rushed to the hospital. Outside the operating theater, Gerald sat shaken, thinking, had it not been for Carty, I would have lost my home, my wealth, and even my life. Doctors later informed them that one bullet had only grazed his leg, and the other hadn't penetrated deeply. Within 6 weeks, Carty was able to walk again. Gerald and Hazel couldn't raise their eyes in gratitude. In a soft but loving voice, Gerald said, "Carty, why such madness?" Carty, calm yet firm, replied, "In my days of hunger and misery, you gave me shelter. When I saw you and Madam in danger, it was my duty to risk my life." Days later, Gerald offered Carty a permanent room in his house. "This is your room now. From today, you live here. I was already impressed by your honesty, hard work, and dedication. But that day when you risked everything to save me and Hazel, after that it became my duty to keep you as family." Carty could not refuse. He moved into Gerald's home, becoming the closest and most trusted person to them. One day, visitors arrived for Gerald. In the drawing room sat Jacqueline and Victoria. Carty stood silently at the side, watching. Gerald, struggling to hide his unease, asked, "Who are you people? Why have you come to see me?" Victoria, burning with anger, shot back, "Do you really not know us?" Carty stepped forward. "This woman is Jacqueline, my mother. And I am her son, Curdy. Yes, the very son you once called Bunny. You robbed my mother, stripped her of everything. But you forgot, every criminal faces justice one day. Today is that day, Graham. The name struck Gerald like thunder. His body trembled and he collapsed into a chair. Victoria advanced and declared, I am Victoria, the very woman before whom Jacqueline's mother once revealed vital truths about her daughter. You lied, deceived, and stole everything. Today your lies are laid bare. Curdy delivered the final blow. You spun your story with cunning, but I've turned it against you. Just as you fooled my mother, today you stand disgraced before everyone. At that moment, Hazel entered the room.
You're all liars!
Curdy, you're nothing but a bastard. Whatever you've done, you'll pay for it. I'll call the police right now. I won't let you harm us. Graham's voice trembled as he turned frantic, stammering before Hazel, while she, terrified, looked back and forth at her husband and the strangers. Curdy calmly gestured for her to sit. Come, Mrs. Gerald, or should I say Mrs. Hazel. I was about to reveal the truth in front of you. Enraged, Graham barked, Yes, listen to this nonsense. We gave him shelter, treated him like family, and now he calls us criminals. Curdy's voice turned stern. What I say is the truth. I acted only to claim my rightful place, not to commit crimes like Mr. Graham. Hazel, distraught, cried, Will someone please explain who these people are and what is happening here? Curdy answered gently. I will tell you, Mrs. Hazel, this man beside you is not Gerald. His real name is Graham. And here is my mother, Jacqueline. This elderly lady is Kishwar, my grandmother's friend. This is Aunt Anne with her husband and children, who stood by us in dark times. And the one responsible for all our misery is Graham. Hazel's eyes widened in shock. Curdy continued. Even my father abandoned us when he learned of the lost inheritance. I wanted to settle scores with him, but he died. My other great enemy was this man, Graham, who seized everything with lies, schemes, and a new identity, leaving me and my mother in ruins. Graham shouted in rage, Lies! You're poisoning my wife against me. I'll shoot you. You can't take anything from me. But his trembling hands and aging body betrayed his weakness. Curdy spoke with composure. Don't worry, Mr. Graham. I don't want what's yours. I want only what's mine. But first, Hazel deserves to hear the truth, how you built a life of luxury by deceiving a helpless woman and her son. Then, Curdy revealed the full story. The robbers, he confessed, had been his friends. The entire attack was staged to frighten Graham, not to kill. I told them to fire harmless shots only to shake you, not to take lives. The goal was to show you a mirror. Lifting a file, Curdy declared, These are the documents I made you sign from time to time. They prove you're no master here, just a servant. Now choose. Either walk away silently with your wife, or face the court for fraud and illegal possession. Graham's face drained of color. His youth was gone, his servants had deserted him, and the wealth and land now belonged to Jacqueline. Curdy's voice rang firm. Yes, Mr. Graham, I, Jacqueline's son, have defeated you. In these past days I showed your workers the truth, the evidence. Now they all stand with my mother. Sadly for you, you are left with nothing. Hazel sat silent, drowning in tears, her world shattered. Jacqueline, at peace, looked content. Aunt Anne and her family rejoiced, knowing their kindness had finally borne fruit. Holding his mother's hand, Curdy said, Mother, I endured hardship and pain, but today, we've reclaimed what is rightfully ours. With tears in her eyes and a smile on her lips, Jacqueline embraced her son. Your like and follow motivate me to share more stories. Leave your feedback in the comments.